Just because you know bad news may be coming doesn't make the bad news feel any better for Penn State football fans, especially ones that are deep in and follow recruiting and Ryan Snyder and what he's been telling you about on the Blue White Illustrated message board, and of course on the Blue White Illustrated recruiting show, which happens every Monday here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. But Ryan, you have some bad news to deliver for Penn State fans today, so lay it on them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching this video by now, I'm sure you saw Jaelyn Matthews. Really good 2025 prospect. He was Penn State's top guy in the class. Decommitted on Tuesday afternoon. Look, this is a top 100 prospect. I think pretty easily will be the top offensive lineman in the Mid-Atlantic region for the class. There's some other guys that, don't get me wrong, could move up. But, from what I've seen so far, I think he's always going to be, probably a top 150 kind of guy. I mean, right now, 1-3 has him at number 76 in the nation. And you talk about a 6'5", 273 pound, offensive tackle who really has all the pieces. Physical, really gets after it. I don't know if this is the video to explain all the things he does good, T. Frank, but I mean, he's a really good player. But
yes,
but I also think if Penn State fans have been paying attention, and I know many of you guys have, of course, and many of you who subscribe to us know that Sean, T. Frank, I mean, we've all brought this up in different recruiting shows over the last handful of months that all you had to do was kind of pay attention to what Jaelyn was saying publicly to realize that this was anything far from a true solid commitment. I mean, I remember doing a show with you and Sean back in July or August. And we were going through his Twitter feed, and he had more mentions of Georgia on his Twitter feed than he did of Penn State pretty much throughout the entire summer. And I think it's probably, unless he deleted tweets, I think if you go back through it, it's probably still the case. So this was, we always knew Jaelyn was going to take other visits and things like that. And it was a positive that he got to the West Virginia game the other week. But this was still felt like something that was kind of inevitable. And even if he didn't formally decommit, it didn't ever really feel like a solid commitment. I mean, we knew visits were gonna come at some point.
Yeah. So this is going to be an unfair question, and I'm going to ask it even just because I feel like it's a thing fans may want to know. Why can't Penn State get these top guys? So go back over the last couple of years, Penn State has been in the finals for guys from the Northeast that are national prospects, and we have, Jaelyn Matthews is the top of mind, but you've got other players that have been, 5-star offensive tackles, guys that have the size and the movement skills and the athleticism. We talk glowingly about Penn State's football players that they have gotten, right? The guys that we think have great talent and potential, but then there are these rare breed kind of guys that Penn State is still missing on, even though they seem to have good relationships or they commit early, like Jaelyn Matthews. So what's up with that? The unfair question.
A couple things
what's
I
up
would
with
say.
That?
Yeah, well, a couple things I would say to that is I think over the last year or two, they have gotten those guys. I mean, Javen Williams was a 5-star for a reason, and he absolutely earned it. And I think James just talked about in his press conference today about, how he has all the tools out there that one could want. And of course, there's guys like Donko might be a little bit ahead of him as far as picking up on the offense and things like that. But Javen has all the potential in the world. So he's a good example. Birch, I know we haven't seen Birch a lot yet, but he's got all the tools as well. Donko does as well. So I do wholeheartedly believe that over the last two classes, they have done a really good job of landing these guys. Now, obviously, if you go back to the Nolan Rucci's of the world, there's some other examples, going back past 2020 where, I think you could really point that out. But with Jaelyn Matthews, it's definitely not over yet, too. I don't want to pretend this is a done deal or anything like that. Now, with that said, if you look back at Penn State's decommitment list over the years, there's not too many guys who decommit and recommit, right? I mean, Mega Barnwell comes to mind. Micah Parsons comes to mind. I can't really think of anybody else. If you kind of look over, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm trying to do a quick little glance of I try and keep track of decommitments the best I can, but I can't really think of anybody else of those two. So we'll see where things go from here. Look, we know he's going to go, like I said, he's going to go down there, visit some Southern schools. He's already brought that up. One other thing I'll say with Jaelyn too is I already had people like, oh, is this NIL? Is he getting recruited by these Southern schools and NIL are going to screw us? I generally don't get that impression at all here. I mean, I think this would have been a decommitment in 2015, in 2010, in 2005. Like, this was just a kid who, don't get me wrong. I mean, I still think he really likes Penn State. I think Philip Troutwine's going to continue to do a great job recruiting him. He may come back and visit, all types of things like that. But just a player who visited a couple times early, really enjoyed it, committed early. Even when he committed, there was a little bit of Sean and I, if you can read between the lines with us sometimes, we're like, we'll see about this one.
Yeah.
And sure enough, here we are. So I'm sure he'll make it back for a visit at some point down the road, but that's certainly not a player that they're gonna give up on. I'll say that.
Yeah, and by the way, I apologize. The guys I was thinking of from the Northeast, Gerby Lambert, Samson Okunlola, two players that Penn State had communication with, that was in on, and that's really what I was trying to paint the picture of some of these top names that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Samson is one thing. I mean, that was a player they really wanted, and they missed on Samson, right? But I will say, like, Gerby Lambert is like, you got to put him in a whole different basket, I guess you would say, just because, like, just from what I've read on that recruitment. I mean, remember, he flat out, Gerby Lambert decided to cancel his Penn State official visit so he could go take a visit to Harvard. Like, it's just a unique kid, right? That's a unique, you don't ever see that. I don't think I've ever seen that doing this for 14, 15 years now. So that just was a really unique recruitment. It is what it is. Put that one to the side.
Yeah, and that was more the illustration of the point of, it feels like an unfair question to ask, and then you point out all the good players that Penn State has gotten on the offensive line and how things are genuinely different, but some of these top players can still sting, and I'm not trying to belabor that point here. I was just trying to give the information that I was haphazardly giving at the beginning of the video. I think the important thing here for Penn State, especially in this class of 25, is it's the class of 2025. So there is still time to adjust and move forward and target more players at that position, which I assume they had already been doing. So who are some of those guys that Penn State has their eye on and they've been working on building relationships with to continue to get more offensive tackles that have that level of skill and that can continue to build this offensive line class?
Well, again, I mean, let's give Jaelyn the respect he's due. I mean, he is ranked. I mean, if you look at the industry rating, he's a top 100 guy, pretty much consensus everywhere. So if you're looking for guys in that caliber right now, there aren't many, not in the region at least. You'll find guys down south, and you'll find guys who have Penn State offers. But as far as visited in the region, there's not many on that level. Now, I do think Owen, I think it's Straybig from Catholic Memorial, who of course plays with Donovan Harver, plays with Corey Smith. Certainly a player to keep an eye on down the road. Yeah. He's visited once before. He's another top 75 kind of guy. But out of Wisconsin, like, is Penn State going to strike twice in Wisconsin, 3 times, 4 times in Wisconsin? We'll see, because of course they got Garrett Sexton and Donovan and them. So I guess this would be their 4th one. We'll see. I think Notre Dame, some other schools are certainly going to be players there too. But there's a lot of guys who have visited, especially kind of even recently. Of course, we've talked about Will Black a good bit. We've talked about Owen.
Very talented football player too. Owen Black, I really like his film. Did you see him at camp?
I
was not at that camp. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha. Anyway, so I mean, he's certainly one of the guys to keep an eye on. Owen, as I mentioned, certainly a guy to keep an eye on. I mean, there's going to be plenty of others. We've talked about Michael Carroll a good bit, right? We talked about Joshua Williams, really good interior guys. I think Joshua Williams and Michael Carroll, like, I'm not putting picks on them right now because it's so far in advance, but yeah, I mean, if I had to make a pick today, I think both those guys make sense. Now, they're more interior guys than tackles, but again, Penn State's really recruited well here in recent months at tackle. They would love to get another one. Speaking of that, Chimney Onu's a guy that we're hearing great things about. So that tackle, that need for tackle, I don't think is quite as high as it used to be. Now, of course, you got to just keep delivering everywhere. You got to keep stacking classes, but I feel like they've done a pretty good job there. Of course, Sexton and then some other guys are coming in. So, look, this is a hit. It's not something that Troutwine or Franklin or any of them are going to be happy about. They really wanted to make sure they could land Jaelyn Matthews long term. But again, I think anyone who's been following this since the summer or really even beyond kind of expected this to come at some point. So if it's going to come at some point, well, it's better September 12th, 2023 than September 12th, 2024. Because that would have really hurt Penn State if this would happen, even not even a year from now, but in the spring or the summer. Yeah, you get my point.
Yeah, it's just I think that particular situation To your point, you can only do so much with a certain recruitment, and if guys not a right fit or isn't interested, then there's no point in holding on, trying to keep something that is going to ultimately slip through your hands in the end. So being able to adapt and adjust and move on is obviously a strength of this program as well, where they've, for the most part, been able to do that. So we'll keep tabs on the class of 2025 as we talk about the players that are coming up for the whiteout game, for the Michigan game, for homecoming, bunch of big games on the slate. So Ryan's going to get you that information at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Great time to sign up. If you're watching this video, you're interested in recruiting, please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube page, and like I said, check out bluewhiteillustrated.com. Ryan, thank you for your time.
I promise next time we do this, guys, it'll be a commitment video or something positive. But hey, one thing I would say real quick, though, too, is like they've only had one decommitment in that 2024 class with Derek Plaz. Yeah. That was kind of a quick commitment that we didn't see coming, and the kid realized he made a quick 2 commitment. So, like, and in some ways, they haven't even really had a decommitment here in a long time, kind of going back to the 2023 class, I guess it would be with, you had Conrad Hussey was probably the last one making that switch late. So my point is there was times in the past, man, where we're talking about 6, 7 commitments per class. And I know 2025, there's a long way to go, but we haven't had to do too many of these videos lately, T. Frank. So I think fans should be happy about that.
That's a huge relief, by the way, because once it becomes football season, and then it's like, okay, here's another plate to keep spinning. So we appreciate the players keeping their commitments just if it's for our own sanity. I know Ryan and I were talking about an hour and a half before we recorded this video of like, we had other plans for this evening, but we are here bringing you the information you need, both at the site and here on YouTube. So please help us out to keep doing that, keep our sanity by following, subscribing, and join bluewhiteillustrated.com, one of the fastest growing sites in the On3 network, one of the biggest sites in the On3 network. We'd love to have you over there. I'm Thomas Ryan Carr. He is Ryan Snyder. We will be back with more Penn State football recruiting information when it happens.